Okay, recording. You're ready to
commentate.
Yeah. So I just press the space bar to pause.
All right. So we're looking at the hybrid, the Rojas hybrid, where I have the modified OP truck in the rear, and I'm just observing some of my body language and trying to determine how much of its riding forces and how much of it is truck geometry and other factors. Immediately you can see that we're getting a lot more deck tip out of this setup. I'm able to just drive my heels and toes down into the deck and keep my feet firmly planted on the deck, which is accommodating because the deck is tipping almost into the pavement. One thing I notice is I'm putting a lot more weight on my front truck and driving a lot more with my front than I am with my rear. And
You can point. It'll show the mouse.
oh, it'll show mice and everything. All right.
Oh yeah.
So you can see that the majority of my weight is loading up on this front truck, which is leaving the rear unweighted and trailing. And if you watch, I'm really able to just drift out the rear simply because I'm not putting a lot of weight on it. But a lot of it's just because I know that it's going to break loose, and I'm just going to keep it unweighted until I need to apply more weight to get it to hook back up and transition out of the corner. You can watch as I shift my weight to the rear truck and then immediately snap it over and turn the other direction.
Oh, right there.
I've moved my head from being over my front foot to being over the center of my 2 feet, and that's when I'm actually transitioning to turn the other direction. And it's the same story again. You can really watch it here, where my head is way over the front of the board, and I'm just loosely keeping weight on the rear. So little.
Now you're way back on the rear.
Exactly. And I'm convinced it's just because I know this rear truck is so loose, or, so not gripped up, that I'm just relying on my front truck to maintain the grip. And then I'm,
So as opposed to
just
really,
you're just managing 50-50 weight distribution.
Yeah, so you're not using your rear foot to kick and push it out to initiate the slide.
No, I'm just gently unweighting it. And again, you can see how much weight I'm putting over that front truck until right there, which is where I'm hooking the rear back up and then exiting my turn and transitioning into the next turn. And again, all that deck tip, keeping my feet well planted on the deck and using a lot of my ankles to drive the board around. And you can see I'm doing a lot of minor adjustments with my ankles. You could really see it on that last little section. I mean, if you watch my ankle, I'm constantly making... Oh, you saw it. That was a really good one right there. You can see my feet actually fluttering as I'm correcting the board, which is something you can do when you have a lot of deck tip to work with. I mean, you can just see that rear end is just always loose. I'm using that front truck to make it go somewhere, and the rear truck I'm just ready for it to come undone. Like right there. Just whoop! I mean, it's difficult not to let it spin completely around and start going backwards down the hill. So basically, my conclusion is this OP truck isn't generating the amount of grip that we want.
Okay,
So
different setup.
now I've transitioned over to my TKP setup, and already you can see I'm putting a lot more weight in between my 2 feet so that I have, you know, more 50-50 weight distribution between my feet. And again, as I'm entering a turn, I'm still 50-50, which was not visible in the other video. My shoulders, everything is so much further back on my deck. I'm actually driving with my rear as opposed to just loading the front. You can see that I'm projecting my foot forward and actually loading my rear foot, which is definitely something I wasn't doing on that hybrid setup. And I'm still 50-50. But you can see how much less deck tip I'm getting out of this setup. I mean, I've maintained near 50-50 weight distribution on this thing. So I'm definitely putting a little more on the front here.
You're so far over, and the deck is so flat.
Yeah, but look, I'm turning still.
Yeah, but look how far your heel is over. I'm pointing with my finger. You can't see that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm still putting some more weight here on my front truck.
Yeah.
But my head is still very well neutral in between.
A lot more.
More so than that other setup. And if you look, I'm using that rear foot to do a lot more actual work in directing the direction of the board. And look how much less deck tip I'm getting. It's crazy. But if you look how offset my stance is, I'm putting my heel over one side of the deck, and then my trailing foot has the toe off the deck on the other side, just because I need that much more leverage.
Even though it's top mount too.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just because I can use it. I can actually, drive it and make the most of it. So again, I mean, near 50-50 even through the transitions. And you can see, like, look, I'm cresting my...
It's hooking back up right now, right? But it's not hooking back up because you're planting your rear foot. You're letting it hook up.
Yeah, I'm letting it hook up. It's not the other way around, like we were observing on the other setup. I'm letting it hook back up. That's a good observation. And you can even see, like, whoop, hooked up, and I'm taking off. I'm not unweighting it to... Yeah. So much less deck tip.
So one of the things you were talking about in the other video when you were talking on the way up back up the hill is that on the Ronin setup, or the Rojas setup, the Rojas OP setup, that it would hook up and initiate slides more predictably, or
on the hybrid setup.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that after watching this footage, I think that's just because I can control it
with your weight.
With I'm not having to force the rear truck around. All I have to do is just take weight off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll just immediately, start bleeding off, traction. So I think that's where the predictability comes from. It's just a matter of putting weight on it. Whereas with the TKPs, I have to maintain near perfect weight distribution all the time. It's just I have to force that rear truck out and be a lot more, focused on where it's going to end up and how to get it to break loose and hook back up using sheer force. And I'm driving so much more with that rear foot.
Yeah.
I mean,
here, so when we were doing your toe side, you had your rear foot toe over the front of the deck, but you've moved your foot. You're moving your feet around in order to
get the best leverage.
And the fact that you've got your heel over the back of the deck shows that you're using that heel
to actually drive the board through. And you can see it as soon as I take it through. I'll extend this leg out and actually push into that rear truck and cause it to
swing out.
Yeah, but it'll also get it to hook back up if Yeah, see, it's definitely starting to swing out.
Your leg's straight now.
And I've locked it, and I'm just trying to put as much force. You can see I've even swung my arms out over the rear of the truck to just force more weight and effort out over that truck.
You're like, hook back up.
Yeah. Well, and I'm also pushing it out.
You're also pushing it out still?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like this, if I don't do this, if I'm not locking the rear foot and swinging my arms out over the truck, then the rear wheels won't break loose, and it will go faster than I want it to, and it won't turn sharp enough to make this turn.
So you have to oversteer with the drift.
Yeah, I'm oversteering with my drifting. I mean, if I didn't go through all this, it wouldn't break loose, and I'd be
doing a huge arc.
Yeah, and I'd be heading down the hill, going faster than I want to.
And you can see here the speed limit's only 25.
Yeah, I mean, again, you can see how much more force, how much more load I'm able to apply to that rear truck. And I mean, just that little turn that I made there, I'm not using my ankles like I was on the previous setup to modulate everything. It's all coming from my hips.
Your hippies?
Like, if you watch, I'm just shifting my hips around. Boop, boop. And that's what's driving the edges of the board down to make it turn.
There's a video where you got like pool noodles sticking out of your hips, so you really see your hips.
There we go. Alright, just put a tutu on. There we go. And again, I'm putting a lot of emphasis into my hips on this run. You can see how much more I was shimmying my feet around through that transition to put my feet on the inside of the deck to get it to corner better.
That stance right there. So people say that when you slide, you need to be like you're sitting on the toilet because people don't
get out.
People need to learn to bend their knees more. Like they're bending their knees, but there's like the perfect.
Letting it go. Let it all hang out. I mean, I wound up with my hips to initiate that little drift there. And you can see I'm not using my ankles. I'm keeping my ankles stiff and rigid, and I'm using all my hip to move that board around. Hip and foot placement.
Oh, he's really tweaked there. You didn't even need a tutu for that shot.
You see, I really have to pump to get the deck to tip over. I'm not using my ankles. My ankles are really rigid, but I'm pumping down through my hips. listen, I'm really not breaking the wheels loose very often. If I am, I see I make an effort to actually break them loose. So anyway, that's me talking about myself and how much of an addict I guess I am about this, but there it is. So, does it stop?